everyone. And I'd like to introduce our speaker, Erin Carlin, from the Rockford Public Library. These events are sponsored, these virtual classrooms are sponsored by the Small Business Development Center at Rockford Chamber. And so we are a part of America's SBDC network as well as the Illinois network. And we help small businesses in the Rockford region with business planning, marketing, accounting, human resources expertise. So if you know of anyone or if you need assistance from us, it is no cost, and we would be happy to assist you at any time. And with that, Erin, I will turn it over to you.
Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here and talk about 3D printing. So I want to put a disclaimer up right off the bat. Edward had reached out to me because I think there was going to be another presenter coming who couldn't be here today to talk about 3D printing. And so he reached out to me and I said, yes, I would love to be able to do this. So I put together what I feel is a pretty comprehensive PowerPoint for about 3 to 4 days of work. I may have missed some stuff, so I apologize ahead of time if I don't have everything that you might expect to see here, but I'm going to have some contact information at the end for you to follow up with questions. But I hope that I have some stuff here that you'll find valuable and beneficial, and that can be shared later on to others who can't make it to the event today. So I've titled this what I feel appropriately to be the wonder of 3D printing for fun and business and everything in between. So let me go to my next slide. There's kind of a starting point when I talk about 3D printing and these opportunities that could lead to entrepreneurship or just a source of enjoyment as a hobby. We put together a video not too long ago, and you guys might be the first people to see this, about the Rockford Public Library's Maker Lab. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that, and that should get us rolling. I'll say if it's too loud, I'm sorry. I'm pretty enthusiastic in this, so bear with my enthusiasm as well. But here we go.
We're inside the Rockford Public Library Maker Lab, located at the Hart Interim Library location in downtown Rockford. We've been connecting people to technology and equipment since 2017. You might be wondering, well, what is a Maker Lab, and what does it have to do with public libraries? Maker Labs, also known as maker spaces, are places you can go to learn about 3D printing, laser cutting, sewing machines, and other cool stuff that allow you to make and create really cool things. Our lab currently has 4 3D printers, a laser cutter, sewing machines galore, a Cricut for vinyl cutting, and a t-shirt press.
There's no question that gaining literacy skills along with reading skills leads to success in one's life. And the public library is doing its part. Public libraries also support digital literacy and technology to improve lives. In our Maker Lab, our customers are learning through the act of doing. With hands-on activities found in our shared spaces, in addition to hosting large groups and groups of all different sizes, our Maker Lab supports one-on-one interaction. Skills learned and honed in our Maker Lab can lead to opportunities for entrepreneurship.
The beauty of maker spaces is that there is so much variety in what can be offered. It's common for people to have access to green screens for video production, virtual reality, and even CNC machines. What would you like to see at your Maker Lab? I'm certain that after one visit to the Rockford Public Library Maker Lab, you'll be able to say with RPL, I can.
Well, I had I must have chosen the wrong video. At the very end of that is supposed to be contact information, but I have that also separately later in the thing. So this a very pared down version of this might be showing up on certain TV stations in the not too distant future, along with some other library offerings. But anytime I talk about 3D printing, for me, it goes back to the Maker Lab, but also the fact that Rockford has the Rockford Maker Space, which also has 3D printing opportunities. Let me shift ahead now.
We're inside the
No, we don't want to watch it again. Okay, so who is this guy? So I'm Erin Carlin. I'm the Assistant Director for Branches, Outreach, and the Maker Lab for the Rockford Public Library. And I've been here in this position for about 2 years and 4 months or so. But I've been interested in 3D printing since 2012. And that was sort of when I first I had known that there was something about additive manufacturing, something about 3D printing that existed. It was 2012 when I really became aware that this could be something that I could do to fulfill a hobby need, and it might even have a business application. But I was just really, really curious about how these machines would make something seemingly out of nothing. It kind of harkens back to Star Trek and the replicators that they have on their starships. So that's a little bit of geeky thing, but it's somewhat real too with 3D printers. I have to move my view of all of you out of the way so that I can see my slides. So what is 3D printing? This is a little text heavy right here, but I wanted to at least have a definition for people to see too. From 3dprinting.com, 3D printing or additive manufacturing is a process of making three-dimensional solid objects from a digital file. In additive manufacturing, an object is created by laying down these successive layers of material until the object is created. And you'll see in a couple of minutes, I've got more content that demonstrate how 3D printers work. They extrude these filament layers of plastic or PLA or recycled materials, into these layers. But 3D printing, it's the opposite of subtractive manufacturing. Think of sculpting. If you have a big block of something, you sculpt away aspects of this person, this bust or statue that you're creating. So that's the opposite of additive manufacturing, where 3D printing is you're only working with what you're building, and so it creates a little bit less waste. But so with subtractive, it's basically hollowing out a piece of metal or plastic, for instance, with a milling machine, or just regular sculpting like artists and artisans do. 3D printing enables you to produce complex shapes using less material than traditional manufacturing methods. All right. So now I think that this group here might be a little more knowledgeable about 3D printing and some business techniques, but it's helpful at times going into the unknown. I wasn't sure who would be joining this meeting today, so I included this video here that explains something from a very young perspective that's helpful, I think, in understanding. So I'm still going to play it, even though I think everybody here is probably at a sufficient level of understanding, but nonetheless, it may have a facet of 3D printing or entertainment capacity value too. So here goes with this one. This one's pretty short.
Hey guys, it's Camry. Our school just got some 3D printers and Nat Geo let me borrow one to figure out how they work. But to be honest, I've just been using it to print tiny cats. It's like a tiny printed cat army. Cute, but no idea how I made them. These printers look super complicated. You know what? I'll just print an expert to help me out.
Hey Camry, I'm Cody Goldhahn, mechanical engineer and Nat Geo expert.
Wow, that thing really works.
What?
Nothing. So, Cody, can you tell me how a 3D printer shapes things so perfectly? Is it like a robot sculptor?
Not exactly. A person who sculpts stone removes chunks of a stone until it's in the desired shape. That's called a subtractive process. A 3D printer does the reverse. It's called an additive process. This means that the printer starts with nothing and then adds just enough material to make the same shape as a sculptor. It wastes less material than traditional manufacturing.
It looks like it's icing a cake.
Yep, it's just like a whole bunch of icing layers on a cake. A really hot extruder nozzle squeezes out liquid plastic layer by layer, right up to where the computer program tells it to. Once the layer is done, the extruder raises up just enough for that next layer to get squeezed out on top.
Can a 3D printer print with other stuff?
Oh yeah, you can print with plastic, ceramics, glass, metal. Some scientists have even found a way to print with biological tissue.
Wow, kind of like how I printed you.
What?
Nothing.
Possibilities of 3D printers are endless. There's many different shapes and sizes of 3D printers. They can print houses, dental implants, complex bridges, even pizza.
Printable pizza, that's so cool. So how does the printer know how to print the exact shape of my cat toy?
Think about you and your computer as the toy designer. You draw a blueprint of anything you can imagine with your computer, creating a digital model. The computer then looks at your digital model, slices it up into layers, just like icing on the cake. Once it knows right where to put the icing, it tells the printer to squeeze out on that exact spot until the whole model is built just like your blueprints.
Wow, thanks so much for your help, Cody. You truly are one of a kind.
Hi, Camry. I'm Cody Goldhahn, mechanical engineer. How can I help you?
I didn't know you had a twin. Now that you know how that works, catch up on all the other episodes of How Things.
All right, so yeah, she's going to talk about the other things that they do at Nat Geo, which are really interesting. You could check that out separately. Let me advance to the next slide here. Okay, I have to move my... Okay, so I wanted to capture some time-lapse videos. This is about 5 minutes. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I wanted to show, because I think the process of something being created through a 3D printer is really fascinating. It's very time-consuming, but these videos are sped up significantly, and you'll see a clock in the background that shows the time. Let me come back to right here. Okay. So hours and hours it's taken for this printer to build this chapel church. Let me fast forward a little more. And if you're a Doctor Who fan, you might find this one interesting. This is an example of something that right off the printer bed is able to be configured and assembled using mechanisms that were constructed directly into the project, which I thought was pretty cool. So kind of like plug and play, this was designed to take off the bed and essentially fold it around together to be something in the Doctor Who science fiction series called a Dalek, which is a pretty deadly bad guy. That's about all I know though. If you're a Pokemon fan, you might recognize this as a pretty popular Pokemon character as well. All right, yeah, the clock in the background is a really good indicator that this process is not a fast process. Depending on the interior of the model, that's basically the infill or the fill, your time can vary. I'm going to go ahead and pause there so that it's not just you're inundated with the video over and over again. But the way in which you design something can also have an implication on the time it takes to have a finished product. Let me move on to the next slide now. Okay, I think I went too far. Here we go. So how does one obtain the means to 3D print something? And it's basically, if you're a brand new beginner, never having 3D printed before, you have a roadmap in front of you, but basically someone else can design something for you and you pay them for it. You would outsource that to a designer or a freelance 3D designer. Or there are websites that have free 3D printing templates, so you would essentially just download those. And then the other option is basically you learn how you acquire the software needed to actually design something that would be printed out in 3D. Then you take that file and you transfer it to a physical 3D printer in front of you, or give it to somebody else who has a 3D printer, or upload it to a 3D printing company that would then print it out for you for generally a cost. But whichever you choose, basically a 3D printing file, it's just a digital file that you've created or somebody else has created with software that then gets sent to the 3D printer. And then you can use your own 3D printer. I think I already said this in a different way, but you can use your own 3D printer, or you submit it to that retailer or a maker lab locally. At the Rockford Public Library, I think we charge $1 per hour of usage on the 3D printer. The Rockford Makerspace has their organization is pretty much by membership. So you would contact people there and then get a tour of the facility and then get some training on their devices. And then they have a different pricing method, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's not horribly expensive. It's a fairly inexpensive cost to jump into. But yeah, so maker labs, maker spaces locally. Now, if you go the route of having someone else design it for you, you have some options, and these are probably 4 of the most well-known, maybe, websites out there. And Shapeways is huge. Shapeways.com. Sculptio.com is another online. Shapeways and Sculptio, they're very similar. So basically, it's a storefront. It's a website that you create an account with, and you can upload your models onto the Shapeways.com platform for your own use. They will print it off, and you'll select the material you want it to be printed off in. Then you pay. Then they print it and they mail it to you. Now, if you're looking for business, if you're looking for a way to sell 3D designs and make money as a business, then Shapeways has that really great storefront where you create and design your storefront. You upload and host all of the designs that you want to make available for people to purchase. You can decide on different tiers of pricing as well. And then Shapeways there will be a certain portion of any sale that automatically goes to them, much like on eBay. When you sell on eBay, eBay gets a good chunk of your profit. But so Shapeways is like that. Sculptio is very, very similar to Shapeways.com. And they're also, oh my gosh, almost infinite sources of products and 3D designs for you to look at, review, maybe emulate. I'm not saying steal because, everybody has their own IP rights, but anything you see out in the world can become an idea for you to adapt or get an inspiration to create something yourself. So Shapeways has so much to look at, and Sculptio is very similar. Tinkercad is one of those sites I mentioned before that was free. So it's free to create a Shapeways account and a Sculptio account. You just have to pay if you're going to buy a design from somebody else or have it printed from them, and then you'll have to you have to allow a chunk of your sales to go to those 2 websites. Tinkercad, you just create an account and you can start downloading things. I haven't been as familiar with Tinkercad. I know it exists, and I know it's got a really good repository of 3D models too. And then there's Etsy. Etsy is a great tool for crafters and artisans and people who make stuff to upload their pictures, or in some cases a file as well, and have someone make a purchase and they get to download the file after the transaction is complete. But they're also great sources of models and ideas, or if you find that thing that just is perfect to you, you just make that purchase and download it and go from there. So that's if you want somebody else to design them. And there are forums within Shapeways, and I believe within Sculptio, for you to contact other 3D designers and work out an arrangement for them, and what maybe their fee would be, or what transactional process would take place if you have an idea but just don't know how or have the time. I guarantee you're going to find an artist out there who would be willing to make that thing you need. All right. Now, if you go the route of designing your own project, you're just really curious and motivated and have the time and the ability, these are 4 of what I think to be some of the biggest applications that you can use. And I believe, Dexter, earlier on, just when we started, you mentioned SolidWorks. I've heard of that, and I didn't include it in my presentation here today, but SolidWorks is another one. But Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop is a really strong, versatile tool for so many things. It is not free. It's a significant amount of money. On the flip side, there's SketchUp. And Google used to heavily promote SketchUp, but I believe SketchUp is really owned by a company called Trimble. It may have passed on to another one since the last time I heard, but SketchUp is a free application that it used to be that you would download the software onto your computer, but now there's an online component where you create an account and you do all your designing through the web page. But they have a lot of different versions of SketchUp, and there is a pro version of SketchUp which is not free, but to get started, it has really great application for a beginner. That was where I started learning about 3D design. I would watch a lot of tutorials through SketchUp, and even now I should have put YouTube on here too, because YouTube is just an endless array of tutorials and videos for nearly each of these. I'm pointing, you can't see where I'm pointing, but each of these apps, YouTube is such a helpful tool to learn how and watch tutorials from other successful presenters. But then there's Blender, which is also a free 3D design application. And then Autodesk has Fusion 360, which I have tinkered around in a little bit, and I started to get going and felt pretty good about it, but I don't always have time to do the learning things that I would like to do for me, what would be a hobby. But Autodesk Fusion 360 felt pretty good. And if I had had more time to follow through with the tutorials, I probably would have switched all the way over to Fusion 360 from SketchUp. There may be a free trial with Fusion 360. I know that there's student pricing, or there might be educational organization discounts where there may be a way to use Fusion 360 for free on a longer term basis than the trial, but it's worth checking out. And then like Dexter mentioned, SolidWorks, and there's probably more, but I'm just not aware of all of them. Well, let me move on. Okay, so with 3D printing, this is like a great question to ask. What in the world could you possibly make or need? But 3D printing has opened up so many doors. Jewelry. I'll show you some pictures here in a minute, but jewelry, tools, art, toys, games, containers. When I say containers, I mean, it could be a glass. It could be something to contain liquid for drinking. It could be a container to hold games or chess pieces. It could be a container that has maybe a business application to it, or a 3D printed part for a larger, more complex set of parts. But signs, nameplates, name tags, chunky letters of your name that you want to have an artistic little thing on your desk for when they come into your office. But mechanical parts, medical solutions. And when I say animals, I don't mean real life breathing animals. I mean fun toy statue representations of animals or your pets. Party supplies. There's all kinds of things you can do with 3D printers to make, birthday parties or anniversaries or any celebrations fun. Sometimes we're talking about trinkets here, and trinkets could have business applications along with things that are more industrial in nature. So I'm trying to give a well-rounded explanation of the things that you could make with a 3D printer. But prototyping. So that's where, if you have a design for a new part related to an aircraft assembly or vehicular assembly or your motorcycle, or you have something that you need a proof of concept for, and for someone to be able to visualize it, 3D printing is the perfect way to capture, this is it in a nutshell. What I'm trying to sell to you, what I'm trying to invoke that you need in your company or your business. So having the physical model that you've designed and created and 3D printed for someone to physically see is helpful. And so the last one, even people, 3D printing people, what does that mean? I don't mean real life people, although they did say 3D printing tissue for medical reasons, for possible organ replacement or transplants. But I'm talking about representations like a picture, a 2D picture. There are really great companies and software now that allow you to 3D print versions of yourself or your family as little static, not dynamic, static action figures, unless you create the posability in there. So let's look at some pictures now of what some of these could be. So from the medical solutions, here we're talking about what a surgeon may need to 3D print a part to plan the surgery, but there's also components of organs, prosthetics, and you're going to see that in a minute. But a lot of planning has to go into a successful surgery, and 3D printing can be that crucial component of how your doctor could study the things he or she needs to know to perform a successful surgery, or to learn more about human anatomy in the hope of conquering disease and other physical ailments. So here's a slide that showcases prosthetics, not just for people, but potentially for animals too, or contraptions that can help animals who have lost a limb, but people and animals. It's a really developing and pioneering field of study, and how 3D printing can help humans who have lost a limb or animals who have lost a limb gain some functionality back and go forward from there. So jewelry, I mean, the jewelry applications and art, I would say, because jewelry is a form of art, these beautiful creations that people wear as ornaments and decorations on themselves. It's mind-blowing, and there are just amazing things out there that people can create that are of such beauty. So that's that example. And then, so the people component, this really, really fascinates me as a person who has always been interested in the toy industry as well. Action figures are pretty cool. And then to be able to have a representation of your family or yourself and your friends, it might be weird. It might be a little eerie. I don't know. One description that I read from a person who received this as a gift used those exact words. It was weird. It was eerie. And that probably stems from something called the uncanny valley. And that is a phrase that corresponds to the closer something gets, like a robot or a 3D television show that emulates the human look, but doesn't quite make it, we can tell it's fake. And so it sets off something internally and primal in us that we don't like it because we can tell it's not real. There might be an element of that to these too. Or some people just may think that's, I don't know what the right word is. I find it really fascinating. And I think they make a neat memento for a birthday, a graduation, a celebration of a wedding anniversary, or lots of life events or achievements. I would love this. It may not be for everybody, but it's something that's out there that somebody thought of, and it's in progress right now. Here's a close-up of two more, a whole complete family. The one on the left with the whole family, I think a company called Doob, D-O-O-B 3D.com, had in some of the major cities around the United States, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, and maybe one more, had storefronts that you could go in, stand in a booth that had 50 plus DSLR cameras around you, and whatever pose you wanted to get in, they would just snap all at once and capture that pose. And then a couple weeks later, you get the final print in color in the mail. When I was reviewing their website to look at that, I don't think they're open right now because of COVID. Coronavirus just ruins everything. But on the right is another example of different scales of 3D prints of people. All right, so 3D printing, if you're getting into that, if you're a business person, you want to explore this possibility, you're gonna need to know what are the costs. And let me tell you, it's a big range for the casual maker, the casual person who wants to get involved with 3D printing. It's fairly accessible with 3D printers having come down so much in cost. The one on the left here is, I think, from the Best Buy website, $209. And then the one on the right, I don't know much about these two specific models, but I wanted to showcase the vast range in cost. The one on the right is a $10,999 3D printer. So you can imagine that the quality is going to flow across the range as well. The one on the left, you're probably going to see a 3D print come out, and you'll be able to see those individual lines, those little ridges from top to bottom. The more expensive or the more advanced 3D printer that you get is going to print a design where that 3D, or that ridgy line appearance is going to be diminished and be a lot smoother. Shapeways.com, I go back to them a lot because they're the one that I'm most familiar with. They have a process where if you choose just the basic model, you're going to get a 3D print that has those ridge lines in it. But if you choose for your product to go through this next level of, I forget the word for it, the next level of the process, it will smooth a lot of those ridges and edges out to give you a more, something that you might find in a store. That's probably the best way I could put it. And so those industrial ones that Shapeways and Sculpteo use, they tens of thousands, they probably go into the hundreds of thousands of dollars for some of those, especially the ones that work with different materials like metal. So some 3D printers can work with silver, gold, platinum. I think there's even a woodish pulp type that you can use so that your final thing is actually made of a woody material. And then they talked about food too. Food could be extruded through the extruder. But so you should know that there's a range of cost between different styles, types of 3D printer and the purpose for what you're going to print. And then, there's the associated costs of 3D printing are you're going to need the filament. So filament is this plasticky type material that's on the spool. And both of these pictures represent the spool that a color comes on, one spool has one color on it. There are 3D printers that also have a range of can only hold one spool and one color at a time, to other 3D printers that can do 2 and 3 and even more colors, and can host is not the right word, can have multiple spools on so that your 3D print comes out in multiple colors. The ones you saw a minute ago with the people, I'm really not sure how that process works for that to be photorealistic. I know sandstone is one substance that's used, and then they have a painting process that somehow, I would like to learn more about that myself, and share that with people for how the color comes out so good in those professionally done ones by the company dube3d.com or Shapeways. But so you see the costs. The one on the left, the hatchbox style, is $19.99 for the spool, and it's about 2.2 pounds. And then the ones on the right, it shows the group, but it's really, each spool is $5.96. This was a screen grab that I took from eBay, which shows just the range of colors. And there's so many more colors than that, but each of those spools comes out at $5.96. And I'm trying to see if it shows anywhere in my picture what the weight of that one is. So there can be a range. You should figure the cost of the range of the filament you're going to use in how you set up what your 3D printing business will do. What else is there that I might want to say about that? Different types of 3D printer filament. Some are made from PLA, some are made from recycled 3D printer filament, some are made from something else altogether that's pretty good for the environment. I don't have that part with me today, but there are many types of filament to choose from too, and their costs will vary. So also in figuring out your costs, these electricity is a huge component. I mentioned, and we saw how 3D printing can take hours and hours and hours, and in some cases days. So you're going to want to figure how much juice is this thing, using to print this product. And unfortunately, sometimes the lower end models are going to clog. Those extruders are going to clog. They're going to mess up your 3D printer and that thing you were trying to build. And it's going to cost money to fix that part, or to get a new part installed, or to have somebody fix it for you. So you'll want to figure into your budget, maybe to have some repair pieces already on hand to replace it with, instead of being delayed. But shipping, if you're going to make 3D prints that you ship out to somebody, you'll have to make that determination if you're going to ship for free, or if the shipping is going to be included into the cost of either if you're making something for yourself or for someone else. And then packaging too. So if you're going to be mailing that out, I think even if you don't mail it out, if you design and print something out for somebody, you're still going to want to have something for it to be to reside in, something that looks nice, has your company, your logo on there. So that will be a cost as well. Okay, so where might you look for help? If you have more questions and there was something that I didn't necessarily touch on today, or if you have, we touched on it, but you want more, obviously, Edward, you're going to want to reach out to Edward in the Small Business Development Center here in Rockford. So I've put, his name in their website there, but the Rockford Public Library and our Maker Lab, we have some interesting things that can help entrepreneurs out, small business minded folks, from very beginning to already experienced and entrenched in the business model. We have something that's called the Gale Small Business Suite, which I'll show you a little bit about that in just a moment. But that's something that's available to Rockford Public Library card holders. And I want to say that if you come into the library and use one of the library's computers, get logged on by one of the staff, you should be able to access this without a library card in the library. Say you live in Belvedere, or one guy that I was talking about this the other day happens to live in Pecatonica, but he had some small business questions. And I mentioned to him some of this to use his library in Pecatonica, that they may have some business related information. But also our Maker Lab, that's at the moment, because of COVID, it's by appointment inside the Rockford Maker Lab. And then there is Launch 815 that I'm pretty sure Mike will know about, Edward probably knows about. Launch 815 is an amalgamation of some existing entities in Rockford already that are trying to group together to help streamline the process for somebody wherever they are to get their questions answered and help them in their endeavor to start their own business, to be their own boss, to launch that idea that what they're looking for to lead to their freedom. So Launch 815, look into that. And then our the Rockford Makerspace, which is separate from the library. That's rockfordmakerspace.com. That's a group of people, and I'm a member there myself, and I've used mostly their laser cutter there, but they do have 3D printers as well. And the way if you want to go to that location and use that, you come to one of their member open nights, which are generally on Wednesdays from like 6 to 8 p.m. You talk to the folks there. They go through an orientation process, and then you can decide on the level of membership you want to be. A casual membership, which may be $5 a month, a not so casual one that could be as much as $25 per month. And then you get training on the devices there. And then basically you get a key fob, that 24/7 access to go into that makerspace and use their 3D printers, laser cutter, their wood workshop, and more. So the Rockford Makerspace is also a really good resource for people to know about. All right, so I mentioned the Gale Business Suite for the Rockford Public Library, and it's fairly new to me. I've known that we were pursuing this for quite a while. I wasn't sure what status it was in for the public consumption, but I have enough knowledge now that I can introduce people to it. And if you have more questions, you can definitely call some people at the library to get more info. I'm going to try to actually go to the library website, so I might have to change my screen sharing thing. I'll show you these screenshots first. So basically you come to rockfordpubliclibrary.org, and at the top middle, there's a little tab that says research it. You'll click on that, which will take you to a list of our databases. And if you scroll down over on the left in the G side, it says Gale databases. So you'll click on that too, and that takes you into more information about where the Gale small business suite is. So then once you've clicked on that, it looks sort of like this, and you have, I can't scroll here because this is just a screenshot, but Gale business demographics over there on the right. And this might be a good point for me to segue over to the website to try to show you live. Let me tab forward. I don't want to forget to show this contact info screen before I go over to that part. But if you do have questions about what I've talked here today and want to follow up on 3D printing stuff, your number one contact for that in regards to the library is Leon Smith. He's the Maker Lab assistant manager. Our Maker Lab is at the Hart Interim downtown library location, and the phone number there, 815-965-7606. His extension is 723. So if you want this info, I would say screenshot this right now, or Edward or I can make this available to you. Leon's email is maker@rockfordpubliclibrary.org. Now, on the business side, after I show you the Gale business stuff that the library has access to, Marie Barcelona at the library, she's going to be your business contact. And she works in the info services, adult services department there at the Hart Interim Library. And her number, the main phone number is the same, but she's at extension 639, and then she's mbarcelona at rockfordpubliclibrary.org. And that's the end of that slideshow. Let me try to get to the website. Bear with me for just one more moment. Okay, I'm going to go back and then walk through that one more time. Is everybody still seeing the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, so here we are, rockfordpubliclibrary.org. Research it right here. And then the most helpful way to access it is through the A to Z list of all databases. So it's alphabetical order. I'm clicking on that, and then I'm scrolling down to the G's. And by the way, if you've never seen this, there are so many great resources for so many different things here. So maybe bookmark this to come back and look at later. But Gale databases, so there's that. And I should mention, I'm inside the library right now, so it's automatically going to take me to this without having to log in. If you go to the library's website from outside the library, it's going to prompt you to enter your Rockford Public Library library card. And once you do that, I believe your card has to be not expired, and there probably have to not be in excess of, I can't remember, if you have overdue fees, I'm sorry, there may be a limiting factor with overdue fees. I'm not sure what that number is, so I don't want to say the wrong thing. But if you have a problem, contact somebody at the library, get your library card renewed, or make an arrangement to possibly pay off if there's any overdue fees prohibiting you from accessing this. Or come into the library, use one of our library computers, and then you can get right on. Okay, so So here we are. I can scroll down a little bit more to Gale Business Entrepreneurship, and then Gale Business Plan Builder, and then Gale Business Demographics Now, I think are three really, really important ones. Let me just click inside so you can see some of this now. The one I found pretty interesting was because you need a business plan almost in all situations regarding entrepreneurship and starting your own business. So this is great for new entrepreneurs, people who are already experienced, and then there's nonprofit information as well. Let's see, I may have to sign in. I created a login last night so that I could do this and show you. Okay, so this is the dashboard of the plan builder. So you'll have the entrepreneur profile. And I have to tell you, another disclaimer, I am not the expert on our library's business offerings. So I want to introduce this to you, and then I want to pass you off to Marie at the library, because she's got a really great process set up that will guide people through this process much more than I could ever tell you in this quick little presentation. But I want to show you the basics so you can see what's there. You have the entrepreneur profile, an opportunity for business ideation. So these tools are built in for you to brainstorm and think and then create in your dashboard. It's got some other things, the break-even analysis. I have to minimize these so I can see. Business plans, nearly everything that you're going to need. Financial projections, let me minimize that one so I can bring it up here. Capital expenditures, debts and loans, equity, general administrative. I have to go back to this other tab, I believe. I'm moving around. There's on my screen, there's all the screen sharing info, and if I click the wrong thing, it's going to stop sharing. So I have to minimize it, then go back to that tab, and then re-expand it. Okay, entrepreneurship, Gale Business, the entrepreneurship tab. Has a glossary. You can browse topics of what you might need to know about running your own business. There's so much. I don't want to take too much time clicking on links. I would like to make sure Marie or Edward or Mike or anybody else from Launch 815 is aware of this and has an opportunity to be aware of this and learn about it too. Let's see, let me go back. So trending small businesses, I gotta move the faces out of the way. Here's the part about your plan. So you've got budgeting, business ideas, business plans, market research, funding. So talking about angel investors, venture capital, government funding options, loans and grants, and more. The things you need to start are all listed here. Minorities, veterans, and women-owned businesses may have other resources out there to assist them in their launch. Or maybe you are already one of those types of business owners and didn't know that those things were out there. So that could be a very valuable resource to add to your existing business. And then management functions for financing, expanding, managing your employees, and then selling and marketing your business. All right. Let me go into one more. I'll have to bring this down a little bit so I can get that tab right here. And I'll show you the demographics one. Okay. Which can be incredibly useful if you don't know who you need to sell to or want to know where the crowd that you want to sell to is. So looking for people, looking for businesses, looking for nonprofits. From population and census data to housing expenditures, users of Demographics Now will have access to demographic information, including income, housing, race, age, education, retail spending. So basically everything that you're going to need to know how to market to people, the specific product or products that you have. And again, I'm a little bit of a fish out of water in talking about this because I just don't know. I don't get to do too many zero of the business offerings for the library, but we have people who are very knowledgeable about it that I would love for them to be able to answer your questions. But maps is pretty cool too. Let's see what we can find if we zoom in on Rockford. I haven't done this yet, so I don't know what it's going to show me. Okay, so now let's see what. Oh, you can, okay. So I can set parameters over here on the right, and then download the reports. You can download Geography 2. I don't know if anything's going to do in real time live here in front of the group, but the maps can be really cool for you to see where you need to focus on if you're doing something locally or if you're doing something nationally. It can spread out. I know that the library has an upcoming mobile library. It's going to be a vehicle that we're going to utilize to travel all around Rockford. And so we've used something similar to this to find out, well, where are the people that we've never reached before that don't have a library around them? So we've targeted using maps where our mobile library is going to go, very similar to what you would do to sell something. We're going to go where the people are and give them access to the library through the mobile library vehicle coming out later this spring, like early summer. Okay. Let me go back to the contact info sheet. And I think with that, I don't really have much more to share. I tried to get as much as I could that would be of use and interest to possibly a brand new beginner or somebody that might already be existing in the business entrepreneurship ecosystem. So I hope that helps. Let me turn it back over to Heather and Edward now.
Hey, thank you, Aaron, for being our guest speaker today. I know I learned a lot with this presentation, and I hope you all did as well. Our next presentation, we will have virtual classrooms every Thursday through the end of March. And next week, we will have the topic business behaviors. And the speaker is actually one of our SBDC clients. Her name is Yvonne Decker. She's with the Signature Image. And she has an image consulting business. And she also educates businesses on networking skills and how to bridge cultural differences, especially in the international business landscape. So she'll be a great speaker next week. So be sure to sign up for that. SBDC, RockfordSBDC.org, or on Facebook, we have the event SBDC. And I know we want to get everybody out by lunchtime. Are there any questions for Aaron before we go? I know he has left his contact information.
A question, and I can email if I need to, but so aside from the file to 3D print and $1 an hour, what else would we need to utilize the 3D printer at the museum, or at the library? I'm with the museum too, so I have that in my head.
At a very basic level, a face covering, right now, wear a mask. Leon is setting everything up by appointment, so you could email or call to make up that appointment.
But like, we don't have to purchase the filament or anything, or is that something
that's included in that $1 per hour? Excuse me, $1 per hour. Yeah.
Okay.
We kind of shy away from flash drives. Flash drives and USB drives can contain malicious code. So we're shying away from that and saying, if you have a design or something that you maybe submit it through email or have it in a Dropbox or a Google Drive, rather than use a USB or flash drive, just because of we are trying to be very cyber secure in light of things that are happening in the world. So you might want to have that ahead of time in a format other than on a USB or flash drive.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.